Good afternoon. Welcome to Dialogue with Deidre. I'm your host, Deidre Malone. Education is so important to every aspect of our lives. And today I have a top educator in the Dialogue with Deidre M1 TV studios, and that's Superintendent Dr. Nicholas Manning. And he runs the Aspire public school system here in Memphis. Dr. Manning is not new to Dialogue with Deidre. Early in our development of our show, he was one of our first guests. Dr. Manning, welcome back to Dialogue with Deidre.
It's good to be here.
Always good to have you in the studio.
Yeah, when you were just talking about that, I was thinking about when we first got started.
I know.
Just like on the ground, door knocking, whomever would like listen to the vision that we had for young people.
I know, and I think back to when we first met. Mm-hmm. We first met in Oakland.
That's right.
California.
That's right.
Both from Memphis, out in Oakland, trying to learn a little bit about Aspire Public Schools. So you've been with Aspire Public Schools Memphis almost from day one when they landed in the market, right?
That's right. We had when they identified our superintendent, the next person that she hired was me, here on the ground.
So now you're the superintendent. How many years later?
About 7 years later now.
How does it feel?
I tell you what, Deidre, I talked to our team about this. It's like, what happens when your dream comes true?
Right.
And so I'm living my dream. I'm born and raised right here in Memphis, and I had a vision on my life to serve children and families the best way I know how, through education. And so I'm living my dream.
And let's talk about that. I mean, you're just an educator at heart. You're a doctor in the field.
That's right.
Came up through the ranks with was it Memphis City Schools at the time, right?
That's
Memphis City
That's
Schools
right.
at the time, and then had this opportunity to transition into the charter system. How's it been for you, Doc?
It's been great. When I started out right at Airways Middle School, coaching football and teaching social studies. Again, right next to the neighborhood that I grew up in. And was just fortunate enough to move up in rank. But when I was at Shelby County Schools, I saw this opportunity with the Achievement School District and charter schools to do more of the work that I was doing on a bigger scale. Meaning folks who historically hadn't had the best outcomes in terms of academic achievement. I was like, how could I make a bigger impact that way? And so let me say this, big shout outs to Shelby County Schools, formerly Memphis City Schools. Love the work there, love what I learned there. Mm-hmm. And for me, this was an opportunity to do more of that work with children and families, again, at the schools where they had experienced as much success as we had hoped.
The landscape for education has changed so much since you've been in education. What are some of those major changes?
Well, the first thing I will say is the market has opened up. There's, other than the municipal districts, there are just more opportunities, and people are being really innovative. We keep hearing things around STEM and the STEAM work now, concepts around community schools, how people are thinking about education is totally different. And the market has opened up. There's just so many options for not only families, but for educators themselves, to speak to and work for systems that speak to their beliefs. Also, we've seen the change in the Common Core standards and that work. And it's been huge, and it's a big lift for our young people. It's a big lift for our educators. It's a big lift for our families. But I believe it's the right work.
Good. So sometimes it's challenging to get our young people interested in their education. As a former educator, now the leader of a school system, how do you get them motivated? How do you get them to understand that their education will have a lifelong impact on their lives?
Well, three things come to mind. The first thing is young people have to see themselves in the educational process, whether it's when they're in an ELA class and the book is about them and they see themselves there. They see themselves reflected in the faculty and staff. They see the school connected to the communities. They have to see themselves in all phases of the process. Also, we have to have great wraparound services. Schools isn't only about reading, writing, and arithmetic. And so how are we wrapping our arms around folks and connecting with other community partners to make sure they have a full experience? Example, we just entered this relationship with the Life Church that's going to be serving our children and families at Coleman. We have a connection with the Grizzlies now that's supporting our work right there at Hand in the Middle. And so we have to have wraparound services and supports. And then just exposure and opportunity. How are we being focused with our field trips, with our specials classes, with our extracurricular opportunities to make sure young people have a vested interest in their education and they see themselves throughout the entire process.
You think we need to have more male teachers in the classroom, Dr. Manning? I mean, there's so many single family households here in Memphis. Do you think more men should be interested in the field of education?
Well, definitely. We definitely see that there's a need there, and we see there's a need for committed people. I can't tell you, like, in terms of like talented folks who are mission aligned to the work that we're trying to do. So be clear, one, sure, we need more men in the field, and then two, every committed person who's putting their life and their heart and soul to this work, we need that, because that love and that passion is gonna fuel their strategy, fuel the work that they do with those lesson plans, and encourage them to do the extra work that no one can account for.
Let's talk about Aspire Public Schools here in Memphis. You've been with Aspire since the beginning, and what are some of the challenges that Aspire faced, specifically entering the Memphis market, that you had to overcome?
Well, the first big change is we were new and not from Memphis.
Right.
New and not from Memphis, and not only that, 2,000 miles away.
Yeah.
And so there is some real challenge in the marketplace when that exists. And we faced that challenge because we have been devoted to meeting community members, learning, not thinking that we have all the answers, not saying we're going to like use some kind of power or authority. We actually see the community as the power and the authority. And we've just learned so much. And because we've had that humble spirit and this thought of working alongside children and families and working alongside community members, so far we've been able to overcome some of those challenges, and now to be in partnership with folks in our communities to get the work done.
And so what's been some of the most rewarding opportunities? Is that it? Like having those relationships?
I mean, the relationships like set the foundation for everything else to exist. So I think those relationships have turned into some of the partnerships that we've talked about. It's turned into some of what we're seeing now, more parents out at our schools this year, even to serve as an example, more than the same time last year.
That's great.
And then how we're thinking about our resources and the work, for another example, is the work we're doing around ACEs, which is about childhood trauma, or the work that we're doing in social emotional learning, to say, yes, it's math, yes, it's reading, but also there's a body of work that needs to be done to support children.
Dr. Manning, and earlier this year, I think it was January of this year, Aspire's national board made the determination that Aspire Memphis would have the opportunity to become a locally managed charter organization. And how's that transition going? Where are you in that process?
I'm so glad you asked. This was a tough decision to make. But we had to focus on three key areas. Like what was going to be the most beneficial to serve children and families. And so number one, we saw through our work and through our research and this process that to have more local control and support for our children and families and what we're doing was huge. Though we appreciate and love our Aspire community and larger system, the work that we're doing in Memphis is different enough to warrant something radically different for what we're doing for academics and wraparound supports. Secondly, for us, just having the governance, and so now we've launched a local board, and parents now and in the future, more starting next year, will have access to people who make the big decisions. They're local, they're here. We're working on our campaign right now to introduce all of our local board members to our families. And so that brings that next layer of access, understanding, voting, voice to the work. And then lastly, you can't beat being local right here in Memphis.
Right.
To have those local board with local ties and folks seeing their energy, their resources and support stays right here has impact on the city that they love. So for us, it was a no-brainer once we decided to kind of do the work and engage in that process. And so it's been faced with some challenges, you betcha. And our team and our families, when we ask them about this work and engage them, they're ready to move forward.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful news. And so how is the staff taking it? I mean, are they happy with the decision and moving forward with the process?
Well, they feel good about the decision. Right. That's evidence in our school leaders who remained, in our regional office that's stable, and our teammates that told us this year that we saw a 10% increase in the way in which we're communicating change. And so, like, those are real actionable numbers and very tangible that we can point to. And then when we talk to our families, they are extremely energized by what we just mentioned about like voice and access, local governance, being more nimble and making the changes needed for their young people. Starting next month, we'll be engaging all of our teammates, all of our families in the work on our vision, mission, and naming process.
Good.
And so we have the opportunity to like reimagine our work moving forward and to do it together from the ground up.
Well, that sounds very exciting, Dr. Manning. Very exciting. Is there any last parting words you'd like to share with our viewers today about your vision for the upcoming Aspire Public Schools Memphis, or whatever the outcome of the new name may be?
Sure. So I have two things.
Okay.
The first thing I want to lift up is we're really taking a big look at our vision. Right now, it's every child is prepared to earn a college degree. And everyone I talk to, including myself and my family, is expanding that vision beyond college. That it's more, college is not the end goal. It's a means to an end. And so, like, how are we preparing children to be contributors to society and, like, for their dreams to be realized, and whatever the pathway we carve out for that. And so I'm excited to see what that's going to be and how that's going to shape up. And then overwhelmingly, we continue to hear, and I personally believe, being a young man from Orange Mound who's been able to, like, sit right here in Dialogue with Deidre, it's about figuring out the community aspect of this work and magnifying and amplifying that. Because we know when a community wraps its arms around children and families, the entire community improves.
That's awesome. Before you get out of here, you have to give a shout out to all of your schools in your system.
You're right. Send a shout out to Aspire Public Schools, Memphis. Love you guys. Handley, Stand Up, that's elementary and middle.
Right.
Right there in Raleigh at Coleman, and then Aspire East and Hickory Hill. We love you. Hope you guys are doing great today, and get after it for kids.
Dr. Nicholas Manning, thank you so much for coming back on Dialogue with Deidre. You know it's an open door for you anytime you have anything going on with your system. Please come back and share the information.
Will do. Can't wait.
Okay, can't wait. Excited for you.
Yeah.
You've been watching Dialogue with Deidre. I'm your host, Deidre Malone. Remember, subscribe to the M1 TV Network YouTube channel so you won't miss any of our programming, as well as the M1 TV Facebook page or Dialogue with Deidre Facebook page. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next Wednesday right here, same place, same time. Have a great rest of your day. Hi, I'm Deidre Malone, the host of Dialogue with Deidre. You can find us on the M1 TV network on YouTube. Subscribe and follow us. You can also find us on Facebook at M1 TV Network, Twitter, M1 TV Network 2, and Instagram, M1 TV Network 2. Please follow us so you can keep up to date with what's going on the M1 TV Network with Dialogue with Deidre and Black Thought.